In today's You Ask, I Answer, Pradeep asks, how important is design as an element in a company's online presence? Many businesses are uninterested in investing in this vertical as they believe it's costly with non-measurable returns. And since the audience tastes keep on changing, it's wasteful to invest in a cycle of designing and redesigning the appearance of your digital presence. There's not a clear answer here. Prior to working with at the last company I worked at, I thought design the same about design, that it was just largely an exercise in futility, that people should value you for what you can do for them, not how you look. But when you work in an industry like public relations, perception and appearance and opinion matter a lot. They are how people make decisions, for good or ill. When you walk into a room, if you are wearing this, like a very casual hoodie, that's going to convey a certain impression. If you're wearing a three-piece suit, it's going to convey a very different impression. And the reality is, your design has to be aligned to your brand, just as your clothing has to be aligned to your brand, or your personal appearance has to be aligned to your brand. If you walk into a room and you are Mark Zuckerberg, you are wearing a hoodie and jeans, right? Back in the day, the late Steve Jobs wore a black turtleneck and jeans. If you are going to JP Morgan Chase on Wall Street, you are wearing a suit. It would be folly to wear anything but that, because that is part of that organization's culture. And part of design is conveying that to the audience. You are either a little bit like them, or you understand them and what they want. So how important is design as an element of your company's culture? It reflects your company's culture. If you don't invest in design, that's fine. However, if you are pitching companies to whom design and perception matter a great deal, or your product or service revolves around perception and opinion, you will miss the boat. You will not get the business. Conversely, if design and perception matter a great deal to you, but to your audience they are unimportant, if you are a firm and you believe in a very strict dress code, and you're pitching tech companies that have the C-suite, no one in the C-suite is older than the age of 30, you're going to come across as a little out of touch with them. And so align your design and your investment in it with your audience. Some audiences, they don't have all that much interest in great design. Other audiences do. Now, I would argue there is a baseline amount of design that needs to go into any company, no matter what, to get that alignment, particularly if you are not technologically capable of doing so. Companies see it as an expense because good design is expensive. And you can tell the difference between bad design and good design based on how easy design makes it to let audiences do what they want to do. If you get to somebody's website and it's super easy and you don't need to spend any time figuring anything out, you've got great design. Regardless of whether it is simple or complex or bespoke or casual. Think about how much casual clothing costs. Right? You go to a designer store or a brand name store, and you can buy a pair of ripped jeans that are already ripped for like $90 or $200, and you're like, but they're already ripped. Why am I spending money on pre-ripped clothing? Because it has to. If you value that brand and you value that look, and yet you value the functionality of the clothing as well, at least to some degree, it's got to stay on your body for decency's sake, then you'll have to pay that much money for clothing that is theoretically defective, right? Because it matches that look that you want. So even in a case where your design is casual, it may not be cheap. So just as true for clothing or food, for any of these things that control perception. So that's the answer there. Design is perception, and if perception is important, you should invest in it. Is it wasteful to invest in it when you have to design and redesign for the appearance of the audience because the audience tastes keep changing? It depends on the audience and what you're selling. If you're selling food or clothing or things that are highly culturally influenced, then you're going to spend a lot on design if you want to be relevant to your audience. Birkenstocks were a very popular shoe 20 years ago. They're not as popular now, and so if you were a shoe company, you'd want to be selling today's shoe, or ideally today's shoe and tomorrow's shoe, so that you can keep up with the market. On the other hand, if you're selling B2B SaaS firewall software and hardware, then your design has to reflect the audience, but doesn't necessarily have to reflect cultural changing tastes as much, because people's tastes when they're buying that product are not as transient, as it were. So, good question. The answer is you're going to spend a lot on design, no matter what it, and you should spend as much as you can afford in order to make life easier for your audiences and to help change their perception of who you are so that it is aligned with them. Thanks for asking. As always, if you have questions, please submit them to You Ask, I Answer, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. Thanks for watching.